You're listening to Day to Day on X106.
Hello and welcome to Day to Day. Andrew Botwinik alongside Jenny James here as we're going to, go right into, we've got two topics today, mostly college basketball, because a lot of stuff happened this weekend. Jenny and I were talking about that before we came on. And in the NFL, the Combine, we got a Combine recap because that was a good bulk of the weekend. Actually, it's still going into today. There's still some athletes participating in today's events. But starting with college basketball, we're going to recap some of the games that happened this weekend, starting with Tennessee against Kentucky, the rematch from what we saw earlier this season. And it was the exact opposite of what we saw this season. So home court advantage prevailed for Tennessee as they won 71-52. For Tennessee, Grant Williams had 24 points, 7 rebounds, and Jordan Boone 27 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. And for Kentucky, P.J. Washington led the way with just 13 points. So, Jenny, what are your thoughts on this kind of a game?
I mean, it's just crazy to watch what has been happening this year. Like we have talked about the past couple of weeks, the home court advantage this year has been huge. And that's not just one conference. This has been every single conference, even the Big 12. We're seeing the home court advantage play a massive role this year, and I think that's just crazy.
Yeah, we kind of talk every single week. Yeah, it seems like this season specifically, teams are playing a lot better at home. Teams are struggling on the road, which is common in college, but not to this level. It seems like by tournament time in just about 2 weeks, it could seriously be anybody's game because no one's going to have that home court advantage, and anybody can go in and lose any game regardless of seeding, is what we saw last year with Virginia losing to UMBC. So that kind of a game, we might see something like that happen once again.
Yeah, I agree, and you look at some of the conference standings still, and there's still multiple conferences that are up for grabs. I mean, the Big 12, it's been like that all season, but it's coming down to the very last few games here of who's going to grab the conference.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of the Big 12, we got the next game up on our slate, the Texas Tech Red Raiders going to TCU. And this Texas Tech team did not struggle on the road. They destroyed TCU, another Big 12 team, for the second week in a row, 81-66. Couple scores, I believe 5. I'm seeing, 5 scores for Texas Tech in double figures. And for TCU, J.D. Miller led the way with 18 points, 8 rebounds, and Alex Robinson with 17.6 assists. So some good statistic numbers for TCU. But it seemed like everything was clicking for the Red Raiders, and they're slowly making waves in the past couple weeks in terms of games.
Yeah, for sure. I think they are excelling at the right time. I mean, they are tied for first in the conference with Kansas State still. They're both at 12-4, so they are definitely progressing at the right moment, and I do think they have an opportunity to clinch either a share or, win the conference outright. I'm not sure who they have left to play, but they are definitely making progress at perfect timing. So it's really, really cool to kind of see from Texas Tech, a team that usually is kind of average, I would say, in the Big 12. So to kind of see a different name up there, I guess is kind of exciting for them.
Yeah, Texas Tech on a 7-game win streak is what I'm seeing now. They round out the season at home against Texas and then on the road against Iowa State. So, yeah, Jacob Blair and I were talking earlier. This Texas Tech team could do some damage. They're making some waves. And, yeah, like you said, they're getting hot when they need to get hot, especially towards the end of the season. And that's typically the teams that go far in tournament is teams that excel at the end of the season. And then you mentioned K-State, them tying or having the share of the Big 12 right now. K-State for the rest of the season, their next game is at TCU, and then they round out with a home game against Oklahoma. So possibly, it depends on what TCU team we end up getting. But and then in contention still for getting a share in that Big 12 title is KU, who actually tomorrow play at Oklahoma and then round out at Allen Fieldhouse against Baylor. And that Oklahoma game could be one that could play spoiler for the Big 12.
Yeah, I really want to look out for the Baylor game just because Baylor is sitting right behind Kansas there. So it is at Allen Fieldhouse, and that's always a challenge, but I think Baylor might be able to give Kansas a run for their money. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen because the Big 12 has been crazy this season. So.
Yeah, to say the least. And I believe, Kansas is still undefeated at home. So to lose on the last game of the season to Baylor for potentially a share of the Big 12 title, that would be kind of perfect, I would think. Yeah,
it would. And you never know what's going to happen because Kansas has definitely had an off year. They just haven't been very consistent this year, so I wouldn't look past it. I think Baylor has a chance to, but like you said, they have not lost at Allen Fieldhouse, so that's always a struggle.
It'll be interesting, but it seems like there's not a whole lot of question marks towards the end of the season. No one's really playing in the Big 12 any marquee matchups. There's no Texas Tech, Kansas here late in the season. I know just last week we had K-State, Kansas, but for the last two games on each side, or each team rather, there's one matchup that you could say, well, they might lose this one, and there's another one where you're like, they're probably going to win that one.
Yeah, especially when you look at the Baylor K-State game. K-State only won by 6. Mm-hmm. So Baylor is definitely still on that competitive edge. So I definitely think that the Baylor KU game is going to be interesting.
Yeah, there are definitely some games to circle, especially with how KU's been playing on the road thus far. A loss to Oklahoma at Oklahoma wouldn't be too far out of their realm, I don't imagine.
Yeah, true, especially playing at Oklahoma. Yeah. Home court advantage for Oklahoma. You never know.
Yeah, coming off of a 5-point win against Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State being buried in the bottom of the Big 12. So we'll see. But the next game we have on our docket, another top 10 team dropped a game. Michigan State lost to Indiana 63-62. So Indiana goes a game above 500, and Michigan State, as you'll see later on when we go over the AP poll, drops to just barely within the top 20, or the top 10 rather. For Indiana, Justin Smith, 24 points, 4 rebounds. Devontae Green with 13 points as well. For Michigan State, Cassius Winston had another great game, 20 points, 5 rebounds, 11 assists. Kenny Goins back from injury with 14 points. Could not get it done, though, however. There was another guy, Xavier Tillman, in double figures.
I know Indiana's not in the top 25, but they're one of those teams that has a very successful basketball program. So it doesn't really shock me that it was Indiana that, upset Michigan State, just because they're like the Syracuse, they're a very familiar, successful basketball program. So it wasn't super shocking, but I could maybe see Indiana. You said they just got above 500, so
yeah, 15-14.
Yeah, I would like to see them make it in the tournament, but not sure if that will happen. Obviously, beating Michigan State helps them, but
they started out the season super hot. I believe that at some point they were ranked within the top 15. They beat Marquette. They did lose to Duke pretty bad by 21 points. They beat Louisville, Butler. And then after their loss to Michigan, they went cold and I think won 1 out of the next, it looks like, roughly 12 games. It was not a good stretch, but their one win over that 12-game stretch was against Michigan State. So they sweep Michigan State throughout the season.
Goodness, yeah.
Another close one, 79-75, and that was at Michigan State. So
wow,
that's going to be nice to have, especially a road win against a team like Michigan State if you're looking to build that kind of March Madness resume.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Indiana's counted out, but they're going to have a lot of makeup work to do here, and the rest of their season is at Illinois versus Rutgers. So not a lot of big matchups late.
At Illinois, that could be tough for them, too, to finish out.
Yeah. That it could. And then the last game that we have that's kind of a bigger game, UCF beating Houston. I'm trying to find the final score for that game. Everything just went wonky on me here at the last minute.
That was 69-64.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. 69-64. So UCF takes that one. Colin Smith, 21 points, 7 rebounds. And then Taco Fall, 13 points, 10 rebounds. Houston, Corey Davis Jr. and a couple other scorers in double digits, but for predominantly it's Corey Davis Jr.'s offensive team, and a great performance from him, but not enough around him. And there's potential now for the tournament that we could have 3 AAC teams higher than, I would say, 10 seeds, because now UCF is ranked. Houston's still ranked, and then Cincinnati's still ranked. So those are the three teams that we could be getting from the AAC, which is interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? I was calling this. I was waiting for Houston to be challenged here because I kind of felt like they were definitely overrated just a little bit, and then boom, UCF comes in and takes it away from them. So I'm not really surprised by it, just because I, from the beginning, wasn't really super confident about Houston. I didn't feel like, I don't want to say they didn't deserve it, but I just feel like they were definitely overrated and overranked just a little bit.
Yeah, especially them getting into the top 10. I think we talked about that last week they were at 8 last week, and we were both just like, I don't think that they
understand.
really. Yeah, they're like, we really haven't played anybody other than like Baylor and Cincinnati. And if Cincinnati's the best team you've played, you definitely don't deserve top 10. But those are the games we're recapping, and now we're going to take a look at the AP poll, which came out just a couple hours ago. There are some shape-ups, but not in the top two. The top two stay Gonzaga, Virginia. Number 3, we see a new number 3 in North Carolina. Number 4 is Duke, who received 1 vote for number 1 still. Tennessee at 5. Kentucky at 6. Michigan jumps up 2 to number 7. Texas Tech gets into the top 10 at number 8. Michigan State drops 3 but stays in the top 10. And then LSU jumps up 6 to get that 10th spot. Is there anybody that should have dropped more, should have dropped less, or should have we went up even more?
I would say maybe Michigan State dropped at least 1 more. They lost to, it was Indiana, right?
Yep.
Yeah. When you look at it, they lost to them twice. I mean, they've been unranked all year, so I don't really see why they still deserve to be in the top 10. I think that they should have dropped to 10 or 11, and that's, I guess, just my opinion. And I kind of feel like Texas Tech should have moved up at least 1 more, and same with Tennessee. Obviously, people in the AP voting are still holding on to Duke and loving Duke so much. They only dropped 1 spot, but I think Tennessee probably should have moved up 1 more spot, and Duke should have dropped another.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Duke losing to, I believe it was Virginia Tech. Yeah, Virginia Tech, 77-72. I know you don't have Zion Williamson, but you still have Reddish, you still have R.J. Barrett. You still have, like, the other 4 of the top 5 signees in the nation from last year. So there's not a lot of excuses you can make at this point. And to drop just one
spot. That's just a little crazy to me. You look at all the other numbers, and nobody moved up 1 or dropped 1. It's all been 2 or 3 or 4. So the fact that it's just Duke, like, it's really, you're going to play it like that? Okay.
Yeah, because the interesting thing is that they lose to Virginia Tech by 4 or 5 points. So yeah, you drop at least a couple, but you get Kentucky, who had a 20-point blowout almost to Tennessee. They dropped just 2 spots.
Yeah, and they're still at 6.
And then you see Michigan State, who loses to Indiana by a single point, drop 3 spots.
Right.
You see Houston that loses to UCF, who's not a bad UCF team. It's just they lost a conference game. They dropped 4 spots, as we'll see here. They're at number 12 right now.
Yeah.
And it's like you
it's
get
not
these
consistent.
teams. Yeah, you get these teams that lose, but the AP poll, like you said, they still kind of hold on to Duke being Duke,
right?
And having that Duke caliber team, and they're thinking that maybe, and this is something that Jacob Blair and I, and I'm probably you have the same exact thoughts, is that they keep holding on to these teams that they know are going to perform well at the end of the season, and come tournament time for like SEC, ACC, like conference tournaments, that they're going to come out and they're going to win, and they're going to say, "See, we got it right. You just got to give us another week or 2."
Yeah. I don't agree with that thinking, because it doesn't make sense to me. It's not. I just don't see really how it's fair. There's obviously favoritism being shown towards these powerhouse schools like Duke and Kansas, and I could go on, but that's the AP for you. So
yeah. This is the 18th week, and I think that I told you this before. This is one of the ones where, for the most part,
it's a little better.
It's better than what we've gotten.
Yeah.
As we'll go through now, 11 through 20, we have Purdue jumping up 3 spots to 11. Houston, like I said, dropped 4 spots down to 12. Kansas jumps up 2 to 13. Florida State jumps up 4 to 14. Virginia Tech, after beating Duke, jumps up 5 to number 15 now. Marquette, dropping 2 conference games this last week, drops 6 spots to number 16. Nevada, losing another conference game, drops down 5 spots to number 17. K-State, who lost to Kansas but was able to bounce back against Baylor, drops 2 more spots. And then Buffalo at number 19 jumping up 2 spots, and then Cincinnati at number 20 jumping up 3 spots.
Oh my gosh. I'm just looking at the Kansas and Kansas State difference, and it blows my mind. Because, so Kansas moves up 2 spots after beating Oklahoma State. Tell me how that makes sense, because it doesn't at all. Oklahoma State is a team that you should beat. And how many points did they win by?
Yeah, it was like 5.
2 or 5?
Yeah, it was like...
That is insane. And then Kansas State, they lost to Kansas earlier in the week, but then they went on to beat a tough Baylor team, and they dropped 2. How does that make any sense? It doesn't. This blows my mind.
I'm right there with you. I think it's kind of weird because... Yes, Kansas lost to Oklahoma State, and I think that they beat Oklahoma State rather. But I think it's more the teams that were ahead of them lost as well, and I think that's why Florida State jumped up as much as they did, because they played Notre Dame and then they played NC State, and those teams are really not that great. But Florida State gets the jump because Marquette lost, Nevada lost, and because K-State didn't win out their week. And same thing kind of goes for Kansas. I know Virginia Tech, I'm looking right here at their schedule. They had the Duke win, and then they beat Notre Dame. So I guess they jump up a couple because it's beating Duke.
Exactly,
a lot of teams, that's going to be their staple win. And if this was a team that's looking out, trying to get in to March Madness here at the end of the season, having a win against a top 5 team, regardless of when it was at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, that's going to be a win that you're going to have circled, and you're going to say, oh, well, we beat Duke whenever they were hot.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And they jumped up 5 after. Did they play again after that, Virginia Tech?
That was the last game they played.
Yeah, so them jumping up 5, I say, is pretty reasonable. The Kansas thing, it really bugs me. Really bugs me. And then you look at teams like Nevada or even Buffalo and Cincinnati, I just feel like they still don't really get the same treatment, which is understandable. I understand that because, you have teams like Houston that, we were talking about earlier. They were 8, and we're like, really? Do you really deserve to be up there? But it's like, if you're going to favorite certain teams, I just feel like you need to kind of share the love a little bit. And it's hard to predict, though, with those teams because you look at their conferences, and you're like, okay, well, they're not playing very tough. So I understand that part of it, but it's just really kind of crappy for the AP to just, we're going to pick Kansas as our favorite, Duke, Kentucky, Tennessee, and then they just don't give the proper seedings, which really affects this time of the year when we're approaching March Madness. So
yeah, because that's what I was thinking right there with you, because come tournament time, I don't want to play Nevada.
Yeah.
If I'm one of the teams at the top, Nevada's on pace right now, I believe, to get a 6 seed. And if you're one of those 1 or 2 seed teams, you don't want to play Nevada. You want to play a team that's projected a 6 seed like Buffalo, Cincinnati, Florida State, Virginia Tech, even those kind of teams. Those are teams that I want to play if I'm a 1 or a 2 seed as a 6 seed playing them. I don't want to play Nevada. I don't want to play Marquette. I know Xavier Howard is an animal. He's able to do stuff on the court that not a lot of people can, and
right.
If you're one of those top teams, you pick and choose who you play, kind of looking at it. And those are 2 teams that, although they haven't played great basketball the last week or 2, they're still teams that can catch fire, especially come tournament time when they know they're playing for something.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at Nevada's record; they're only 26-3, so very dangerous team that you're not really sure what to expect from them. Their conference, obviously, not a powerhouse conference, but still they're still hanging in there. And so, like you said, I wouldn't want to play them when it comes down to conference or tournament time. So
yeah, and the Utah State team that they just played and lost to 81-76, I believe they're projected to come into the tournament as an 11 seed.
Yeah.
So that Utah State team's not a bad team that they played. It's just luck of the draw. They just beat them whenever it got down to the end of the season.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's kind of got that itch, or oh yeah, it's a couple of weeks away. So definitely everybody's kind of stepping up their game at the right moment.
Yeah. And then rounding out the 25, Wisconsin drops 2 to number 21. Wofford jumps back up 2 to number 22. Villanova gets in at number 23. Maryland drops 7 spots back down to number 24, and then UCF gets in at number 25. And then the others receiving votes Auburn is next in line, Mississippi State, and then Iowa State as well. And then Utah State, that team that just beat Nevada, is, I believe, sitting fourth. They had 17 votes to get in, so there's potential that we could see another Valley team getting in.
Was Wofford an AAC team?
No, they are a Southern Conference team.
Southern Conference. Okay, I thought they were part of the Cincinnati and all of those. I was going to say, that's crazy if there's like 4 of them now making it.
Well, what's interesting about Wofford is that potentially, if it comes down to in the conference tournament, whoever wins their conference gets an automatic bid. So if Wofford loses their tournament and, say, a team like Furman wins, we could get 2 Southern teams in because Wofford's probably going to get in for sure because they're a ranked team. And if they don't win their conference tournament, we could be seeing 2 Southern teams in.
Interesting. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I definitely think Iowa State still has a chance to make it in. I mean, I think they have a good draw still. I mean, they're only 9-7, so that's not terrible. But, I mean, sitting right behind Baylor in the conference standings, so I definitely think they still have a good opportunity to get in.
Yeah, I think Maryland deserved to drop as far as they did too. I know 7's a big number, but losing to Penn State, who's not been playing great basketball. I'm trying to find their record right here now. They are sitting at a 12-16 record, 5-12 in conference play. So losing to that team by 17 like they did, 78-61, is not good. And then you turn around and you lose a close one to Michigan at home, which isn't what you want, but having 2 losses on the week is going to drop you about as far as it did for Marquette did. They dropped 6. Nevada lost 1 and dropped 5 spots. So 7 for Maryland is respectable based off how everybody else has played out.
Yeah. And is this the first week that Nova is back up in the top 25?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Coming off of, I believe, I know the win against Marquette because that was a big one that they were talking about, and then they beat Butler this weekend as well by 21, a 75-54 game.
Yeah. Yeah, they're back in at 23, so that's interesting too because they weren't in the top 25 last week. So definitely Marquette, that really helped them a ton. And it just shows that this time of the year, like I've said multiple times, these teams are feeling that urge and that pressure of the tournament approaching. So I think we might see, even yet next week, we might see a lot of changes the top 25. Yeah,
especially now with that win over Marquette. Villanova takes over in the Big East by half a game over Marquette, who had almost ran away with it. They were up 2 games, I believe. Nova now sitting at 13-4, and then Marquette sitting at 12-4. So is there anything else about the AP that you want to bring up that you have an issue with, maybe seating-wise or even bracketology? We can talk bracketology for a minute.
I mean, I think I pointed out my issues with the AP. I think every week it seems like there's something that it just like baffles me that they somehow come up with, but what are you going to do? It is AP. But if you want to go on to bracketology, you can do that.
Yeah, we got week 18. It took 18 weeks for us to finally agree with how bracket has been. So we or not bracket, AP poll.
Yeah.
It took 18 weeks, and now we're finally like, you know what? This is more okay than we have seen.
It's a little better. I won't give them too much credit just because they still are mess it up a little bit. But it's a little better.
Still a couple of nitpick things. Kinda. But looking at what I have for bracketology on CBS, they have the 1 seeds. This actually surprises me. The 1 seeds, number 1 overall seed, Virginia. You have Duke, you have Gonzaga, and then you have Tennessee getting a 1 seed.
See, the one I have on ESPN has Kentucky at the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Which, it says it updated yesterday.
The one from CBS is updated
so
today.
They're picking Kentucky over Tennessee as a 1 seed?
Yeah, I don't know.
And Duke? Well, I mean, Duke makes more sense than picking Kentucky, but okay. ESPN, do your thing.
So yeah. We'll see when it comes closer to it because who are the 2 seeds according to ESPN?
North Carolina, Tennessee, Michigan, and Michigan State.
Okay, yeah. CBS has Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, and then they have LSU as a 2 seed, which I think is super heavily. that is one that I'm not sure if I agree with that at all.
Yeah, ESPN has a LSU at a 4.
Yeah, I don't think that LSU plays at a 2 seed level. because they have as the 3 seeds, and this was updated this morning. They have Houston as a 3 seed, Texas Tech as a 3 seed, Michigan State and Purdue as 3 seeds.
Yikes! Yeah, they have ESPN has Houston, Kansas, Texas Tech, and Purdue. So,
okay,
not sure how I feel about Houston being a 3 seed.
Yeah, after that, we'll kind of see how it shapes up with the conference tournament. If they win the conference tournament, I think it's okay.
Maybe.
I think a 3 seed is okay for them because they'll probably play UCF or Cincinnati again if they win the conference tournament, and if they beat them again, I think the 3 seed or a 4 seed is perfectly fine for them.
Yeah.
I don't really like that LSU is a 2 seed though.
Yeah,
according to this,
that's a little crazy. I think.
I think at that point, Texas Tech is a much better viable option as a 3 seed.
I definitely agree.
And that's something that I have not ever said because I was not a fan of this Texas Tech team, but they're playing great basketball now, and LSU's playing great as well, but a couple slip-ups. They lost to Florida. They lost a couple other games where they should have won them.
Whereas Texas just literally killed Kansas. So
Yeah, they came in I guess Kansas came in and Kansas did what Kansas does on the road and did not play well at all.
I think it's interesting to see that they're both 3 seeds on this bracket, on ESPN's bracket. Tech and Kansas are both 3. So
yeah, that should be interesting. In this one, they have Kansas as a 4 seed along with Marquette, Kansas State, and Florida State.
That makes a little more sense to me. I would say Texas Tech definitely deserves to be a 3 seed. Kansas, not so much. I would put them at 4 with K-State as 4 too.
I think you have, depending on how the Big 12 shapes up, I think that has to be what it is. Because all of these teams are deserving of a 4 seed. But I think the winner of the Big 12 gets a 3 seed.
Yeah.
And that'll pretty much silence everything unless there's a share.
Right.
If there's a share of the Big 12, at that point it's a coin toss.
Yeah. I know. And right now their share would be between Texas Tech and K-State. So why would Kansas still be above them, which probably will happen. Mark my words. It's going to happen, Andrew. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah. But the bracketology will probably shape up that way.
Yeah, it will.
Kansas will end 3rd, and if they lose to Baylor, possibly even 4th in the Big 12, and they'll still put them higher.
Oh, yeah. They'll still get a top 5 seed. No doubt.
For sure. But that's pretty much all the top seeds that we have in our tournaments. Is there any other, like, where's Nevada sitting yours, maybe? Virginia
they're
Tech
sitting
now?
at a 5 seed right now on ESPN's bracket, which that's a little generous, I think. Just a little.
That's where CBS has them as well. They have Nevada as a 5 seed, but they have them in the same East region as Virginia. So that would be interesting because according to what CBS has, it's Kansas, Yale, Nevada, Lipscomb, Auburn, UCF, and then Virginia and whoever's one of the last 4 in. So there's potential that Virginia could be playing Kansas or Nevada. And like I said earlier, if you're Virginia, you don't want to play either one of them.
Right.
I guess if you had to pick one, you'd probably rather play Kansas, honestly.
True. Yeah, this ESPN bracket is totally different than the one you have because it has Nevada in the south area playing New Mexico State. So that's a little different matchup for them. But eventually, if they won, they would have to go against Marquette because they have Marquette right under Nevada as a 4 seed. So
interesting. So that's kind of how ESPN and how CBS are setting up their brackets. We've got a couple more weeks, I believe 2 more weeks until the brackets are officially released, and when they do, we will be the first to jump on that.
Till the madness begins.
Yeah, and we'll jump on that and get all of our picks out there, and we'll probably spend the entire episode going over our entire matchups.
Man.
But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back and go over the NFL Combine that was this weekend. And we are back now with some NFL Combine stats. We're going to go ahead and start by going over all the 40-yard times. We're going to go by position now. So we are going to start with the quarterbacks. So the record time set back in 2006 is 4.35. No one even got close. We're not going to worry about that. It's just for reference. The fastest quarterback 40 time was by Trace McSorley out of Penn State with a 4.57. And then next we had Tyree Jackson out of Buffalo, 4.59. Easton Stick, North Dakota State at 4.62. Nick Fitzgerald, with 4.64 out of Mississippi State. Drew Lock getting in from Mizzou at 4.69. Ryan Finley out of NC State, 4.73. Then Jake Browning, 4.74 out of Washington. Jordan Tiamu, Mississippi with 4.77. And then the Duke Daniel Jones at 4.81. Jared Stidham also at 4.81 out of Auburn. And that's basically the top 10. Will Greer, 4.84 at number 11. And then Dwayne Haskins at number 15 at 5.04. So those are kind of the more notable players as well. Gardner Minshew, 4.97 out of Washington State. Is there anybody in that list that kind of made a name for themselves in this draft class, possibly, with their 40 time?
I think Drew Lock sitting at 5th definitely helps him. A 4.69, that's, kind of like average for a quarterback. So, but the fact that he is sitting at 5, I think that stands out. And I think that definitely helps his chances. And the fact that he is above some big names like West Virginia's quarterback, or there's an Auburn quarterback, Dwayne Haskins. Like, he's above some bigger name quarterbacks. So I think that definitely helps his case.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think he's the first big name guy that kind of pops out from the 40 times. I know Trace McSorley, Tyree Jackson, Easton Stick, and Nick Fitzgerald aren't top 5 quarterbacks, but Drew Lock being a top 5 quarterback in this draft, and him being the first name that gets put up there from the 40s. The next guy that's on that top 5 is Daniel Jones, and he's sitting at 9th.
Yeah.
And then Will Greer's not even a top 5 quarterback in this class, and he's sitting at 11th. So I think if he would have ran faster, potentially could have boosted his draft stock. And I don't think it's going to hurt Dwayne Haskins because he's not a running quarterback. He had 150 career rushing yards at Ohio State.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that makes more sense. But.
Yeah, not a mobile kind of guy.
Right.
But then again, neither is Drew Lock. But
right.
having that speed is something that's going to be beneficial.
Definitely, he could be, a running quarterback. Like, we've seen him at Mizzou. He, kind of was mostly passing, but we've seen him in the pocket, scrambling, whatever it may be. He definitely can, with being in the top 5 on the 40, like, that's going to stand out to coaches and be like, oh, okay, like, well, we know he's fast and quick, so we can use him in more ways than maybe Dwayne Haskins. Exactly.
And then jumping over to the running backs, we have the best time set back in 2008, Chris Johnson. Once again, no one even got close to that. 4.24, no one got close. We see Justice Hill, though, the fastest time out of Oklahoma State with a 4.4 even. Rakeem Armstead out of Temple, 4.45. Jordan Scarlett out of Florida, 4.47, along with Mike Weber from Ohio State, 4.47. Travis Homer, 4.48 out of Miami. Darrell Henderson, 4.49, along with Karan Higdon and Miles Sanders as well. All three of those guys getting 4.49s. And then Travion Williams, 4.51, and Tony Pollard at 4.52. The only other name on here past that point is Myles Gaskin out of Washington with a 4.58 at 13th. So not the fastest running back class, but there are some people at the top that started to make a name for themselves, like Justice Hill. I think he, up until today, had ran the fastest 40 time overall.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, you look at these top 5, and besides Florida and Ohio State, I mean, some of these names not really super familiar with, but then the farther down you look, there's Alabama running back, Texas A&M, Michigan, Washington, that are farther down. So it's like, I feel like this is the time for some of those guys who definitely know they need to kind of prove themselves, and you can kind of see it in the top 5 with guys from Temple or Oklahoma State that maybe don't get as much recognition as the guys from Alabama or Ohio State, or so on and so forth. So a 4.40, it's pretty good though. It's not 4.24, but
yeah,
you have to be flying 4.24, but 4.40, it's pretty good for running back.
Yeah, and speaking of running backs, I forgot all about him. Elijah Holyfield, son of Evander Holyfield. He had one of the more disappointing 40-yard dashes. He ran a 4.78, and for a running back of his caliber, 5'10", 217, not necessarily a power back, but he's definitely got the power with 26 bench reps. but 4.79 is not going to really cut it, and his draft stock is already going down after that, so there's a couple of question marks with Elijah Holyfield.
Yeah, 4.79. You gotta trim it down a little bit. Like, I mean, it goes up to 4.58 on this list. That's where they cut it off, so that's really not helping him at all.
Yeah, he's sitting quite a bit down there in the rankings. And now looking over towards wide receivers, we have the recent best set 2 years ago, John Ross. The actual record now 4.22. We had some people that did all right, not anywhere close to 4.22, but I guess 0.09 of a second is still fairly close. Paris Campbell and Andy Isabel led the way. Ohio State for Campbell and for Isabel, Massachusetts. And then we had Mecole Hardman from Georgia, 4.33. DK Metcalf, and we'll get more into his combine day later, out of Ole Miss with a 4.33. Terry McLaurin, 4.35 out of Ohio State. Emmanuel Hall, 4.39 out of Mizzou. And Darius Slayton as well at 4.39. Past that point, not a whole lot of bigger name players, a lot of them sticking to within that top 10 range of speed. And this wide receiver class is not great, but there are a few hitters here early in the draft in terms of speed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of the top, even through 9, a lot of them have the same times. I mean, 4.31, there's 2 guys with that, and then next one, 4.33, 2 guys with that. So it's very close, and like you said, this wide receivers class is a very speedy one, and the fact that there is another Mizzou player right there at the top, I think that speaks volumes about Mizzou and their program, and that you tend to see a lot of Mizzou players in the NFL, and I think maybe Mizzou's not the most successful program together, but they are putting guys out there in the NFL and in the combine, and they're obviously making names for themselves. So I think they're definitely, that says a lot about Mizzou, and that they're making strides in the right direction by getting guys out there in the NFL.
Yeah, and another thing about Emmanuel Hall that I saw from the draft, from the combine, one of the highlights is he actually has the longest or the furthest long jump. He actually set the record this year. I didn't realize it till just now. The long jump of 11 foot 9 inches. And there was a Miles Boykin right behind him at 11 feet 8 inches. So both of those guys had potential to get the record. Emmanuel Hall edges out though. So not a guy that I didn't think he had 11 foot 9 inches in him to be able to do that, but interesting nonetheless. So now we're going to go over 2 tight ends for the 40. Noah Fant leading the way from Iowa, 4.5 even. Caleb Wilson at 4.56. Josh Oliver, 4.63. Irv Smith, 4.63 as well for him out of Bama. Foster Maru at LSU, 4.66. And then the other notable name on here, TJ Hawkinson from Iowa, 4.7 even is what I'm seeing here. So there are some speedier guys towards the top. I know Noah Fant, especially with a 4.5, that would put him, let's see here. For the wide receivers, he would be sitting basically right outside the top 15.
Yeah.
So he's faster than a good chunk of wide receivers in this year's class.
That's pretty good. And then, I mean, you look at freaking Iowa boys, what? Okay, what is up? There's 2 of them that pretty good times for a tight end. A 4.7, that, I mean, when you compare it to a wide receiver, maybe it's not as fast, but when you think about tight end, that's pretty average, I would say, for a tight end. And I mean, when you even the farther down, a 4.83, that's not terrible. But the guys that are on this list aren't super big names. I mean, there's a Boston College, Utah State, Iowa, San Diego State. So obviously Alabama being in the top 3, that's not really a shocker, or UCLA, but there's guys that are definitely making names for themselves at the combine. Yeah.
And then moving on to safeties is actually where we see another record. Zedrick Woods out of Mississippi ran the fastest time for a safety in the draft at 4.29. And then we see Darnell Savage out of Maryland, 4.36. Darius West at Kentucky with a 4.39. Will Harris out of Boston College, 4.41. Juan Thornhill out of Virginia, 4.42. And then past that, the only notable names, let's see, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, tied for 8th out of Florida at 4.48. And then past that, there's really not a whole lot of notable names that are going to be in there. These players still are, I believe they're still doing the 40s. I know today there is corners and defensive backs and other positions as well. But for the most part, I think they've already gone.
Yeah. Do they get 3 attempts at it? Or is it just 2?
2 attempts.
2 attempts.
And I'm not sure if they're still running, and some of the athletes could still be competing. I know when I checked it, Nasir Adderley out of Delaware is going to be a guy that is slept on. And when I checked, he hadn't ran yet, but that was a couple hours ago, so there's a chance. Zedric Woods, though, making a pretty big jump for himself. Not a lot of people had him high on their radar, but after running a 4.29, I'm sure he's fairly higher up on a bunch of people's draft.
Yeah, I mean, breaking a record, that just boosts your resume so much, especially when maybe not as popular of a name from Mississippi, so that's really impressive, a 429.
Especially it being in the 42. That's something that not a lot of people get to brag about.
Right, and I mean, a safety, that's where you want a lot of speed, so that does speak volumes about his performance.
Yeah. And then jumping over to the edge position where they have the pass rushers off the edge, we see another record. Montez Sweat out of Mississippi State ran a 4.41, and that's saying something because this man is 6'6", 260 pounds.
Wow.
He was moving, and I was watching the video of him doing the run, and he was zooming through. Justin Hollins out of Oregon at 4.5 even. Brian Burns, Florida State, 4.53, and Chase Winovich out of Michigan at 4.59. Jamal Davis, Akron, 4.6 even. Past that, Josh Allen out of Kentucky, who's supposed to be a top 5 pick, at 4.63. After that, not a whole lot of notable names further on down the list. But Montez Sweat definitely boosted his draft stock. I know in the mock draft that we do on WSK, I had him going late in the top 10. I think I had him at 8 to Detroit. And this definitely helped where I have him sitting. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree because that's another position where you really want speed, somebody getting around the edge there, of course. So, yeah, like you said, that definitely boosts his draft stock a ton. I mean, 4.41, like the next, it's not even close. The next one's a 4.50, so that is like night and day difference.
Yeah, that 0.09, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's
a lot.
It is. And then, so on to defensive linemen. We don't see a record, but Rashawn Gary, once again, head and shoulders above the rest of the competition. Out of Michigan, 4.58 is his time. Max Crosby out of Eastern Michigan, 4.66 is the next best. Noah Cheminsky out of Charleston, 4.69. Nick Bosa, 4.79. And then we see Quinnen Williams, 303-pound Quinnen Williams, with a 4.83 time for him. And then past that, not a whole lot of notable names. But there are some people on the list that are within that top 10 in terms of draft stock, and then in terms of their 40 times as well. So there could be, this is a heavy defensive class, but there are some people in here that could definitely make some waves.
Yeah, and I mean, Anthony Nelson, another Iowa guy. Like, there's been 3 or 4 guys from Iowa that have been in the top 10 at least. So that was kind of shocking to me, and just another, like I was talking about Mizzou, it just speaks volumes about those football programs. They are producing NFL athletes. So to see 4 or 5 guys from Iowa that are doing very well in the combine, that's really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely interesting. But where we get more interesting is the linebackers, and this is my favorite because what separates number 1 through number 4 is 0.03 of a second. And we were talking about 0.09 of a second between first and second. This is 0.03 of a second between first and fourth. Number 1, Devin White out of LSU, Number 2, just a hundredth of a second behind him at 4.43, Devin Bush. And then behind him is Gary Johnson, 4.43 as well. David Long out of West Virginia, 4.45. And then Blake Cashman out of Minnesota at 4.5 even. Past that point, not a whole lot of notable names. A couple players another player from Notre Dame, from Stanford. Kentucky, Jordan Jones, 4.62. But the top of that board is where everybody's eyes turn to go, especially 1 through 4. Mm-hmm. And Devin, White, and Bush are going to be top first-round guys. They're going to be going definitely before the top 15, possibly even top 10, both of them. And Gary Johnson throwing his name in there as well, kind of saying he's still sticking around.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they ran the exact same time, and that we've seen that in multiple categories, guys with the exact same times. Like, I feel like that's kind of hard to do, to get the exact same time. But it's very common. We've seen it in multiple positions, and it just says a lot about how competitive and how different the training is these days when you think about it.
Yeah, and I saw a video, kind of off subject, but on the same, of Devin White. He realized after all the linebackers had gone that he had the best time from linebackers by a hundredth of a second. And there was a video I saw of him just breaking down and crying because all the training and all the work that he'd put into it to beat out Devin Bush by a hundredth of a second.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But now we move on to cornerbacks, where the record was set back in 2017. Jalen Myrick, 4.28. And Jameel Dean got very, very close to that out of Auburn, 4.3 flat. Mark Fields out of Clemson, 3.37. Greedy Williams out of LSU, 4.37 for him as well. And then Isaiah Johnson at 4.4 out of Houston. So once again, there's some names at the top with Greedy Williams. Another name that slips down to number 11 is Trayvon Mullen from Clemson at 4.46. And you and I were talking about this guy from Washburn, actually. Corey Ballantyne was 12th. He was 12th with a time of 4.47. So a guy down at the Division II level, getting an invite and making some splashes, getting his name up there as well.
That's crazy, because I literally remember when we played at Washburn this year, I was watching him and I was like, oh man, this dude is definitely going to go to the draft, because he is so fast and he's very hard-hitting, aggressive. So this is just crazy. I mean, a guy from the MIAA at the combine, and he just ran a 4.47. And I mean, he's tied for 12th, but the times are so close here. That's still a very good time for his position, and really just speaks volumes about the Division II level, especially the MIAA. It's such a very competitive conference, and a lot of people obviously look down on Division II for whatever reasons, but I just think that's really cool to see a guy from our college level that is going out to the combine and turning some heads. So.
Well, and he's got some even more heads that turned just away from the 40-yard dash. He also took first place in the broad jump, 11 feet 3 inches. So another an inch away from Justin Lane at 11 foot 2 inches and Isaiah Johnson at 11 foot 1 inch, along with some others. But taking away number 1 overall for the long jump as well. So once again, Ballantyne making a name for himself from that category as well. And he sits currently 5th for the vertical jump as well at 39.5. So
he's definitely making a name for himself. And that's just so cool to see, especially when you're going up against guys from Alabama and, Clemson and Auburn and all these big teams, and a guy from Division II football over here, and he's just that's crazy. When I saw that on Twitter earlier today, I was like, oh man, that's awesome. So I really hope that that stands out to some teams, because he's obviously willing to work hard for it.
And they might have to update his prospect card as well, because right now they have him at a 5.39 grade, and it says NFL backup or special teams potential. So I think after it's all said and done, they might have to move that up, because I have a feeling.
I agree.
I have a feeling at least one team will bite on him based off his draft alone. I think that there's the athleticism, and I understand that Division II tape's not as good as Division I, but if you're able to do the stuff that he's shown through his statistics, there's a big number.
Exactly, especially when you're beating out guys from Washington or Penn State or Clemson, Michigan. Like, that just says a lot and definitely shouldn't be overlooked.
And then rounding out the 40 times, that's all we pretty much have time to go over here. The offensive lineman, Eric McCoy, led the way with a 4.89. Chris Lindstrom out of Boston College, 4.91. Garrett Bradbury, NC State, 4.92. And then Andre Dillard out of Washington State with a 4.96. So nothing standing out superly. I don't think there's anything, I don't even think that's a word, but nothing that really stands out to me, at least, looking at these. Is there anybody on there through that top 5 that I don't think there's, because the record set by Teron Armstead in 2013, 4.71. No one really gets close to that.
Right.
And the only issue that I see on here is that Jonah Williams, who's supposed to be one of the coveted linemen out of this draft, is sitting at 12th with a 5.12. Yeah. Not bad, but you possibly want him to get into that top 10 range a little bit. Yeah,
especially being from Alabama. I think that kind of speaks volumes when there's guys from Elon or Alabama State, Weber State that are sitting above you. I think that hurts him a little bit. Obviously, it helps being from Alabama and knowing what he could be capable of, but there's just so many times that are very close around the 4.9 area or high 5s. So I think his time's not awful, but I think he definitely could have been a little better.
Yeah. And speaking of the combine in general, I mentioned earlier DK Metcalf and what a combine he had. I got some stats here for you, and you might have seen it on the rundown.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf came in 6'3" and 3/8", 228 pounds. He ran a 4.33 40, 40.5 inch vertical, 27 reps on bench press, an 11-foot 2-inch broad jump, and his hands measured out at 9 and 7/8. And I had another guy on here. I don't know if you saw the tweet about it or not, but they had another guy that they didn't name until after, 6'2", and 3/4 of an inch, 220 pounds, 4.39 40 time, 38.5 inch vertical, 17 reps of 225, a 10-foot 6-inch broad jump, and then 9 3/4 hands. And you said you did see that tweet about it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna see if you could guess who it was, but Julio Jones and DK Metcalf, just by number wise, destroys him.
Wow.
And
yeah.
It's interesting because it kind of hurts DK Metcalf's stock value, honestly, because he doesn't have a whole lot of tape. Only 21 games in his college career. He was hurt a lot, so there's a lot of question marks going into with that.
Yeah, he's definitely performing at the right time, though.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's definitely getting every head turned his way. Everybody wants to see what he's going to do at any given time.
Right.
But we have just enough time here for our Monday Maniac. Did you end up getting one?
I did not. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat DK Metcalf.
Yeah, but that's one that's interesting. I had for mine a sport that does not get much love. Christine Anigwe out of Cal, the women's Cal team. She recorded her 30th double-double with 32 points and 30 rebounds.
Wow.
For the Cal women.
I just kind of just thought of one. I think it was, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was Arkansas or something like that. It was softball. Did you see that? The girl that hit a home run cycle?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah. It was on SportsCenter like a couple weeks ago, I think. But she hit a home run cycle. Like, how do you do that?
Jeez.
That's insane. Like, she literally hit a one run home run, 2-run home run, 3-run grand slam. Like, how do you... that just blew my mind.
That's something. And it's kind of like...
It's hard enough to hit a normal cycle, but to hit a home run cycle, that's insane.
And it's kind of like when you get up there, you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And then when you get back to the dugout, everybody's like talking about it, and you're just like, oh, I guess I did.
That's crazy.
But that is actually all the time we have. We're a little bit over time by another minute or two. That is all we got. Thanks for listening. You're listening to KZLX.